Blog Talk Radio.
Here we go with the main event of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen in attendance, Bucks and fans joining us around the world. It's time for the Matthew Ball we've been waiting for. Finally, it is showtime.
Here, man, we dedicate our life to this sport. We do thousands of sit-ups in camp. We run hundreds of miles, for the ones that take it serious. And we just dedicate ourselves fully to our craft, man. We watch tape. We have attitude. We rooting, and we go into that fight to land on the line.
Minnesota Vikings fans, the Purple People Eaters podcast returns. I'm your host, Chris Carlson. My co-host, Aaron, will be joining me shortly. Obviously, on a Monday night, the night after a big Vikings victory, it's always nice to do the podcast of positivity, shall I call it. Of course, Vikings got a must-win. We've had a couple of them. The last two we've felt like were must-wins, but this one really was. My co-host was talking about how whoever loses this game is, quite honestly, probably out of the playoff picture. There's a good chance we're already out of the divisional, the NFC North picture. I mean, that's not gone, but it's a lot of things have to bounce right. And I did see a little clip from Aaron Rodgers saying, well, we're still in this thing. All we got to do is beat so-and-so and so-and-so, and he rattled off like 5 games in a row. And then we're going to need help. It's like, so you're going to – let me get this right. You're going to win all 5, and then you need some help. So the Vikings got a must-win against the Packers. Was it pretty? No, not necessarily, but a win is a win. Now, after those first couple of drives by the Packers, the defense sure was pretty. They played great. We're definitely going to get into that. Defensive line-wise, a variety of things when it comes to defense. Also, we'll kind of update you on how serious Xavier Rhodes' injury is. We've heard some TV doctors out there, something that Mike Zimmer addressed in his Monday afternoon presser. So we'll talk about that. But overall, the defense looked pretty. And to be honest with you, I say it wasn't pretty, but a win is a win, and I'll take that every week. But the offense looked pretty a lot of the time. Now, they left some plays on the field. They didn't necessarily close. There's been a couple of games, the Jets, the Lions, a couple of games where we closed well, especially as a team, but especially offensively. And then there's several games that we didn't close well. I remember the opening game against the Rams. There were a couple other games that some teams just lingered and we didn't shut the door all the way. So did we close the door all the way in this one? No. Well, ultimately we did, but we didn't step on the neck. But, hey, a win is a win. Obviously, offensively are some other topics that we'll talk about as far as the offensive line. The rushing game, explosive plays, Cousins, and then, like I mentioned, some points left on the field. We'll also go over some special teams highs and lows because there was plenty of them. And so we will start with recapping this Packers victory. We'll also take a look at, once we kind of thoroughly break it down from an in-game situation stuff as the first half and second half played out, and then some of these topics that I mentioned as well. We'll also, of course, look forward to next week. And, no rest for the weary. We've said that a couple of times this season, and we're going right on the road. Not only on the road, but against the New England Patriots, head coach, quarterback combination, those two are legends. So we got our work cut out for them. I think we are slated as 7-point underdogs right away. So we're going to preview and predict that Patriots game. And so we're going to break down this Viking stuff. Now, obviously, like we have every podcast, we do have a Minnesota Gopher football segment. We understand it's the Vikings. Of course, Minnesota Vikings rule this state in almost the 5-state region. Of course, Iowa, South Dakota, North Dakota. I'm just kidding, Wisconsin and Illinois. Just calm down. What am I bringing Illinois into a 5-state region? I don't know what I just said. And we run Canada, obviously. Big shots out to Canada, by the way. So we're going to talk Gopher football, and what a huge win for the program in the fact that the Gophers are bringing the axe home. They beat Wisconsin for the first time since 50 Cent in the Club was the number one single in the country. That's right, the Gophers are bringing home the axe. Honestly speaking, so we're going to talk about that, of course. And we'll close out the show with that. And really, we complain about Minnesota and all of its woes, whether it's the weather or the sports. We're not talking to you, Twins. When you got there, you finished it off, okay? Or Lynx. I got to give props to the Lynx. But as far as the major sports that people really pay attention to, Minnesota teams did very well this weekend. If you think about it, beating the Packers, beating the Badgers, that alone stands out as the football gods shining down upon us, which doesn't happen a whole lot. But then the Gophers, beating two squads in A&M and in Washington. They ended up winning that Vancouver tournament. We'll call it the Vancouver Experiment or Vancouver Invitational. Maybe that's a better one. And even the T-Wolves put a couple of wins together lately. So all is right in the world in these last, say, 5-6 days. I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host, Aaron, right now and see where his head's at. Aaron, you got to be feeling good. I mean, we love talking sports, especially our Vikings. We'll go back and forth, yada, yada, yada. It's fun. We've been doing this since we were teenagers, at two different stages in our life, of course. But, man, it's like I said, we enjoy doing the podcast, but it just makes it that much better when we got the Vikings beating the Packers. And I believe we're 4-1-1 in the last 3 years against the Pack. I saw that stat just a moment ago. I thought, oh, wait, man, we've been doing good against the Pack. How do you feel, buddy?
Well, it really does feel good. I mean, I can't remember a weekend of football where we beat the Badgers and the Packers. Kind of knew something was up, but, you get that prosperity again with the Gopher basketball team, and now the Wolves are looking like they're playing a little bit better, starting to find something here, get going. So, you don't want to keep knocking on wood that this continues. But, yeah, it seems like a really a good weekend. I haven't seen one of these for a while. Good to bring the axe home. I think that's important, as you said, for the program to keep going. I'm not sure what bowl we're going to get. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later. But good to be back on the Purple People Eaters podcast and talking about a little Minnesota Vikings football.
Man, a whole lot of Minnesota Vikings football. Now, we talked about how this was a must-win, and it was. It started out a little ugly. But not even a little. It started out kind of ugly. It did. It really did. If you look at the first two possessions for the Vikings, 2 3-and-outs. I thought, okay, well, Green Bay has a key injury at all three phases, all three positions, levels of the Packers defense, and the first two possessions, 3-and-outs. And you're thinking, Then even going a little deeper in there, we had, on that missed field goal, that first missed field goal, because we did miss 2 of them. Of course, out of both those field goals, just one would have been nice because of the distance. You can't really say, we missed 2 more. By the way, for a moment there, the Vikings were 0-5 on the season against the frickin' Packers, which when it came to field goals, unbelievable. And then it was 3rd and 1, and we ended up losing yards and had to kick that field goal. The 4th and inches, well, we'll get into penalties as well. That's part of the first half issues. 4th and 1 or 4th and inches, 12 men on the field after a timeout. You're like, what the hell's going on? And of course, that was a little later, some of those examples. But early on, it didn't look great. I thought, oh, boy, this is going to be a shootout, and I don't know if we have enough bullets in our offensive line, so to speak. Obviously, Cousins coming off his worst or second worst, whichever you rate last week or the Bills game, as a in a Viking uniform. And then the defense, not only did they bent, but they broke on those 2 early touchdown drives too. It was like, oh wow, this is gonna be the Rams game then. Are we just we're just gonna have to sling it all over the field? And I was a little nervous there to start things out, but then once that offense kicked it in high gear, they really did. They had those 4 what should have been scoring drives, 4 drives that only amounted to 14 points. We missed that first field goal. I talked about that 3rd and 1 moment where I was, pretty disappointed there. Also, we had 6 penalties in the first half, 5 or 6 penalties. The offensive line had a few. They actually, in that 2-minute drill, they had one early that kind of slowed down what we were trying to do on the 2-minute drill. And then also, it pushed us back an extra 5 yards, which led to a missed field goal. Now, I'm not going to say that was the only thing that behind that. We've missed some field goals, and that's not a short field goal. So I wasn't necessarily saying, oh, we got this, dude. We got it. But to get an 11-play drive, it still is something. It's more than something. How long was that? 56 yards. So, yeah, that was long. And there were, to start at our own 10, though, and drive like that, out of those 4 drives, it was disappointing, Aaron, to only have 14 points. But part of me felt, all right, Cousins has obviously bounced back. He started hot. And we started getting some pass protection there as well. And just to kind of slide it over to you here, giving you a little halftime statistics, we had 246 in passing. We did manage a couple of runs there, especially early. It was those 6 penalties that stood out, no doubt about it. And you had Rodgers at 8 for 13 for 94 and a touch, but they weren't, we had kind of contained them. So in the first half, early, and then at halftime, sitting at 14 and 14, what was going through your head, just as far as the feel of the game? Were those missed opportunities down the stretch, whether it was field goals or maybe get a touchdown on one of those drives? How'd you feel at that point? And maybe you have some other stuff that you noticed as well from the first half.
Well, I thought the first half, like you said, was frustrating. A lot of mistakes and penalties. It didn't seem like anybody was really on point at the time. I thought we ran the football, made a point to run the football a little bit more, and I think that helped out a lot. Defensively, we gave up those 14 points. I really feel like that was something that kind of happens a lot with this defense, is you get that little bit of feeling out in the first quarter, possibly the first half, and then adjustments are made, and it's locked down after that. So that seemed pretty standard. I thought offensively it's a little bit shaky. It just didn't seem like it was there until Thielen made the big catch over Alexander, and I thought maybe that had some motivating factor to it. And it just kind of seemed like a clunky offensive performance, and I wasn't really excited about it. And I really didn't feel confident about that game until that special teams error the Packers made, and Sherrills went ahead and got on the ball. And I felt a little bit better. Again, we still got a kicker situation. Don't really want to get it involved with that too much. But, yeah, we had a long one, which is kind of forgivable. But that other one, he just, I guess there might have been a holding problem there with the holder and everything like that. But, yeah, I thought defensively it was a good game. It was a textbook defending Rodgers type of game. And, I really felt kind of bad for him. He didn't have a lot to throw to. And he couldn't get the receivers. I thought, they just didn't, like I said, they're young and they need a little bit more experience to play at the level. So I think they're in a tough spot as far as that receiving for the Packers is concerned. But as far as us, I thought the game plan was good. I would have liked to run the ball more, and I really would have liked to see Murray a little bit more. It was nice to see Cook get loose, but again, that was not really a running play where he scored. It was a screen pass, and Melfline got out there, and that was a good thing. I mean, we really need to be running him outside on that. And then, of course, finishing off the game, you really got a big dose of Murray, and I think that's, what you got to have is a good-sized back to just pound it in and get three yards a down and keep the chains moving. Of course, they couldn't punch it in there, but, they went on fourth down. That was questionable. I don't know if I would have tried to kick it there. They were awful close. I think missing that kick would have been probably worse than the Carlson kick in week 2. So, yeah, I mean, overall, it was a little bit edgy. I didn't want to give Rodgers any time because, you can't do that. So I just kept kind of looking at the clock, watching it tick down. Because, I mean, how many minutes, Chris, are you going to give Rodgers? If you're down 7, how much time do you want to give him that? Do you want to give him 2 minutes? I don't want to do that. You want to give him 30 seconds? Even that's iffy. So it wasn't over till the final buzzer, or in this case, the kneel downs. But, yeah, it was a little bit kind of wasn't the best game they played, but they got the W, and that's what's important.
Yeah, once the defense settled in, and you're right, we do see that, especially in early drives in general, first quarter stuff, maybe even, they did start to already cut it down by the second quarter. Yeah, the offense moved the ball, I'm not going to say at will, but they kind of did. You know what I mean? It was they were moving the ball, but like you said, they weren't scoring as much as they could have. And even, there was the second half started, both teams kind of sputtered a little bit. There was that turnover on downs. That was a key play early, or probably midway through the third. And of course, that was one of the sacks that the offensive line, who played pretty good, especially protection-wise, in second half, they did start to open up some holes as well. The sack and the pressure did kind of get to them a little bit there early in the second. They got to them enough to where we had to settle for that field goal. They did get it 17-14. Overall, though, you could just, you could kind of see it was starting to go our way minorly. Like you said, Murray, third and fourth quarter, especially late third, early fourth on that long drive, really started to put it together. And it was just nice to see some holes, or, Murray, and I saw Cook do this once or twice, get a little bit of, improv. Like, okay, there's nothing there, cut a little bit, get my 3 yards, or even get a 6 or 8 yard pickup. So I did think that was nice. Of course, it's nice to see our pass offense, work. I'm not going to say to a T because we didn't finish it all the way, but pretty close. There was a point late in the game that Cousins was 9-10 versus the blitz, and you can kind of see that they were like, well, maybe we shouldn't blitz that much more. And the defense was just flying around the ball, kind of hitting on all cylinders, not needing blitzes, but when the blitz was there, they definitely, found a home, or at least pressured enough for him to get rid of it. I did notice for the O-line, for the center at this point, several low snaps. One of them almost caused a little issue in a timing route. And, talking about putting the game away, you're right, man, it just wouldn't go away. What felt like great for a second, we're moving the ball, our defense is, doing its job, but we just couldn't put it away late. And even that before, that decision to go for a field goal or 4th and 1 or whatever. I mean, Diggs had that ball in his hand, and he just didn't tuck it. That was a touchdown. It was money. It was right there. He usually comes up with it. Him and Thielen come up with some balls every game that you just go, wow, thank goodness he's there. But that one hurt. That one definitely hurt. Like you said, that was, Sherrill's right there. Sherrill's had a great game, had that nice return and also, scooped up that fumble like you mentioned. But there was moments where I'm thinking, gosh, dude, here we go. They even called it out. 0 of 31 on their last third down plays, this Minnesota Vikings defense. And right then, Aaron, I go, well, here's a completion. Here's a big play. You stop saying that shit. And sure enough, not only did they get a big first down, but that's the play that Rhodes came up gimpy on his hamstring with this injury, and I thought, oh, here we go. Green Bay was doing a good job, I thought, on that kind of 2-3 minutes left type scenario with picking up blitzes, so that kind of got me a little, worried. Rodgers did overthrow. I can't remember who it was, but it was on Holton Hill. He got burnt, and he just missed it. And you don't see that much. You see it from time to time, but you don't see that much. But yeah, the defense once again pulled their weight like they have for most of the last 6-7 games. And the offense, needed to finish, no doubt about it. Some people didn't like, Aaron, how the offense took its time at the end of the second quarter. And then also, and I bring that up just because you brought up, and I wanted to bring this up as well, it was something I want to touch upon, that 4th and 1. And, how much time do you really want to give them? Even Zimmer said after the game, in the post-game press conference, he said, if we score a touchdown, it's over. But once they got that field goal, we would have been up by 10 if we would have kicked the field goal. So that was a weird situation. What are your thoughts? You brought it up, but just to go a little bit more detail, personally, I would have liked to kick a field goal there. The 3rd and 1s, the 4th and inches, we had been failing at those somewhat. Throughout the season, of course, but even in this particular game. So I would have liked to see them kick it there. I didn't have a problem with the somewhat fast 2-minute, drill, because actually it started, I think, a little under three minutes, so it wasn't an exact 2-minute drill. But I liked their pacing in that 2-minute drill because of exactly what you said. How many minutes or seconds do you want to give a guy like that? But I remember seeing on Twitter that people were just destroying us for the way that end of the quarter, ended. First of all, you got to remember where we were. We were kind of trapped back there. We were trapped back a lot. Although we did get a couple, the defense, whether it was turnover or just, playing hard, did set us up in spots, but also there were several drives that we were pinned back. So I think that the combination of the pin back, going that long on the field, right? And also, like, how aggressive do you want to be there when it's not under 2 minutes just yet? That's something that I kind of was thinking about. And also, there was a false start that pushed us back, and I believe another penalty. But, so that actually kind of messed us up a little bit too. What were your thoughts on how we closed the second quarter? Ultimately we didn't get any points, but we did have a good drive. And then also that 4th and 1. Were you okay with saying, hey, we're running the ball now, let's just go for it? Or did you, part of you kind of go, I kind of want that 3 points?
Yeah. Let's start with the how closing out the second quarter. I didn't have a real problem with it. I realized that, that third element of when you play the Packers is the time element, and you got to be really cognizant. You got to know, like I said, with Rodgers, it's just no time. You just can't give him any time. You got to eat the clock, keep him off the field. Just so dynamic in the passing game. I don't care, who he's throwing to. He throws good balls. Even that ball that you mentioned with Hill getting burnt, and Hill did get burnt pretty bad on that. He got caught peeking inside and got hit on a corner route, and that ball is 99% of the time. I'm wondering if there's something thrown off to the timing or something that maybe threw Rodgers off. But nonetheless, yeah, going into the half is the type of thing where sometimes you just want to get into the half, and I thought maybe we were in a position where it's like, okay, we're 14-14, I believe, at the half, and just go in there. It's a brand new game coming out the second half. Of course, you got to give them the ball, but the defense had been kind of better mode than they were in the first quarter, so I didn't have a problem with that. With the 4th and 1, that was interesting because my number one thing on that is, like, whatever happened to running the ball on short yardage situations? Like, we just don't do it. Now, we have done it a few times unsuccessfully, so I can understand why you might want to try some kind of throw, but you got Murray, and I just feel like you got to get a yard out of that. Also, I would have liked to see him kick the field goal. I thought it was in close enough and he needed the points. I kept adding those extra 6 points from the 2-minute field goals on as we were going down in the
Right.
game, thinking, geez, this game is over. You make those 2 kicks, we're up, we would have been up 14, maybe 16 points, and it would have been a no question. But, yeah.
They would have even got more desperate on offense and defense, as that game unfolded.
Sure, and you got to look at, especially late in the game where, we were getting down to that 6-minute mark, and we were in a bad spot a little bit behind the chains. And I was thinking to myself, God, 6 minutes is just so long to give Rodgers. We've got to convert here. We've got to do something. And then we get that miracle, which really was that muff kick was, that extended our drive, made it from 3, brought it down to 2 minutes, and gave Rodgers the ball back really quickly. That was the play of the game. That's the game winner right there. It goes from giving Rodgers the ball back with 6 minutes to giving him back with like 2 minutes and 20 seconds. They had one timeout and the 2-minute warning.
And we
even
still
that's
walked
a little
away
hairy.
with 0 points too out of that play, or out of that possession.
Yeah. It was after you look back, but you're pulling your hair out during the game because you're like, this is just compounding and it's not looking like it's going to end in a good way. I don't care what you are. 2 minutes left for Aaron Rodgers. We've seen it many times. It's just, dink, dunk, touchdown, And so I wasn't happy about it, but we got that play, and that play really helped us progress. I thought that Richardson played a heck of a game defensively. We didn't get a lot from the outside rushers, but I'm sure they were adapting for that. And then, Green Bay just had attrition. They just lost a lot of guys in the secondary. And I thought maybe we'd take a little bit more advantage of that, but we took enough to get the win. So I guess it turned out all right.
Yeah, it was, considering that we had a lead for a while midway through the third, we had the lead the rest of the time. It sure didn't feel good. It was just one of those come on. I even texted one of my nephews when Cheryl's got that, that's game. It's over now. We're going to finish this thing. We're going to finish this thing off. And sure enough, ultimately, you're right, though. I agree. That was the play because of how it pertained to not give him that, that extra, just extra tries in general. And, of course, went down there, and it was to hold him to a field goal. And I also liked how it was 3rd and 6, and they said, we're going to pass this ball. We're going to Diggsy or Thielen, whatever. We're going to pass the ball, and they did. They went right to Diggsy, made a nice catch, and so that was big. That was nice. I liked the fact that we were kind of like, all right, dude, do we want to have this game linger, or do we end it right here? And we ended it right there. So that was pretty cool. It's the 33rd straight win when we're leading by 10 points just in general. It's the longest current streak in the NFL. It's not a second half thing. It's not a regular season game. If we're up by 10, we've won 33 in a row. And I assume a lot of that's coming with the head coach, right? All that's basically under his watch. So that's pretty good. Thielen was doing Thielen things. First it was Diggsy, then it was Thielen who closed the show. Had a $125, I think, for 8 catches. I think both of them had 8 catches. Now he has 9 100-yard games this season, and he passed Most, who had 8 in 2000 or 2000, and in 2003 he had 8 of them. And as we know, we still have 5 games left, which is pretty damn good. So he's kind of bounced back from some of that. Like I mentioned, Cousins had a great game, 332 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Put a couple of them right on the money like we're used to seeing him, not like last week where you're like, what's going on? It's his 5th 300-yard passing game. And we haven't had 5 since since 2009. Favre had 6 of them in 2009. So those saying we need to cut Cousins, just calm your nerves a little bit, breathe in, breathe out, count to 10, do whatever you got to do, but it's not over. And just kind of that run game we've kind of broken down the defense anyway. And I forgot to send it to you, but I have Sheldon Richardson's stats right there, like the guy was all about it. I'm right there with you on Richardson. And every game I see him play this year, I'm just like, man, this guy, he's just all over the place. And, it kind of reassures what we were talking about. What was it, a couple of weeks ago, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, where we asked the question and both answered in the off season, Sheldon Richardson or, Anthony Barr. And, I really like Richardson, man. I really do. And like you said, though, the timely running, that was key, man. That was key on the offense. What do we say? About 80 or 90 yards. Just give us about 80 or 90. And in this offense, the way we're built, even though we were second in attempts last year, we were a top 10 rushing team, and we're one of the best screen game, teams in the league, which is key. But it goes hand in hand with all those attempts as well. Very key. It kind of reminded me, maybe not the long runs, but it did remind me of that Philly game where he just started taking over in that 1-2 punch. And I even noticed it's almost like Cook is kind of figuring out, instead of breaking that big run, I'm going to go get my 4 yards over here or have to break a tackle and go over here and get my couple of yards rather than just trying to break that. The timely running, man, that was key. And when we have that, it just sets us up, because when you look at some of the numbers, I just went over, we were second in attempts last year. I think we were like 8th in rushing. If you look at our rushing stats, whether per player or just overall, they're, night and day from last year. We know that has to do with the offensive line a lot. We know that it also has to do with Cousins, because we can throw the ball more, but we've been relying on the pass. And you have to, infuse this into your judgment of a quarterback, but especially in our case, Cousins, because he's putting up numbers. Yeah, he's putting up numbers with pressure. He's one of the most pressured QB in there, or QB in the league right now. And when you look at 67% of our of the percentage of offensive plays is passing, and that leads the league. That's the highest. On third down, 90%. Those 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 1s, they rarely exist, and when they do, we lose a yard. And then in the red zone, 68%. It's the highest. So, and this is from a team that was second in attempts. So we can get this screen game going. Go ahead.
Well, you look, football's about everything, especially offensive football, is everything's predicated on the run or the threat of the run. And you cannot throw the ball effectively. I don't care if who's that guy down at UCLA who tried to reinvent the wheel, Chip Kelly. But you can't do that. It's a game we've been playing for over 100 years now. And, yeah, it's going to ebb and flow between passing and running. But, I think the game last night was evidence of how you have to run the ball, or you have to have a decent threat of running the ball. Off that can come play action. Off that rests your defense. Off that eats the clock. Running the football, even if you're somewhat unsuccessful like we were in the Bears game, I wish you got to keep going at it, because it keeps the defense honest and allows you to break other things open. I know our offensive line is a little bit insufficient at the time, and hopefully we'll get that remedied in the off season somehow. But it even helps them. It gets them, lets them go and be bullies instead of it puts them. When you throw the ball, your offensive linemen are set into a defensive position. They're protecting. They don't get to come at it. Whereas you run the ball, they get to go be aggressive, get moving downhill. And these are all sort of obvious statements, but I really think last night we saw them run the ball with a little bit of success, and how that kind of builds on itself. Now other things are opening up. You've got Thielen getting routes. You've got, Kirk's got more time. He can actually do a play-action pass, which we actually saw one last night. And he's really good at it. He's very good at it. And so,
that's one of his
we got to use that more. So I think that's, Zimmer comes from Parcells, and Parcells is very much a run-first guy. And, I don't care if the whole rest of the league is throwing it 90 times a game. Be the one team that isn't. Make them adjust to it. Run the football. If you got the backs to run the football, run it. And you don't have to, like you were saying, 90 yards is fine. It's more about the attempts, I think, than it is the yardage. And if you can do that timely, then everything else sort of flows offensively off that. And I really thought last night kind of showed why you run the football.
Yeah, I mean, last week, Zimmer did say, we're averaging right around 4.1 a carry, just like we did last year. It's just the attempts. And sure, you're not going to keep trying to, fit a square into a circle hole. I get it. But yeah, you got to. And we proved that we can pass the ball. I don't know how many more weeks that we need to do this to prove that we can do that. We proved it, against the Rams in that game. You could tell, if it wasn't, and we could say if, maybe if only, all those words about the turnovers against the Saints. But we were right with that squad and actually outplaying them in a lot of ways. I mean, if we're honest about it. Now, we also have to be honest about it and say, like I said, but those are key factors, not turning the ball over. Obviously, that wasn't a problem there. And Cousins, this is something that we hadn't touched upon just yet, but Cousins, I think maybe one of us, I think you did bring this up in one of those plays, one of those third downs that he probably could have ran once for a first down. That's something him and Zimmer talked about. Hey, you were showing that in the spring. You were showing that in training camp. You even showed it a couple early games that you can just go ahead and take it. Even if it's 4 yards and get down, that's fine. We don't want you, getting silly. I mean, he did actually have a couple of plays where he got hit, but you could see he was protecting the ball and whatnot. But even another little improvement from Cousins that I'd like to see more, not necessarily getting outside of the pocket and not having those, and having that ball low, like we said, you could see it's clear as day, but just taking that 5 yards or that 8 yards here and there. And I thought he did a good job of that last night. But yeah, I mean, I'm not over here calling Cousins the top 5 guy in the league, but we don't need him to be top 5. We need him to be about top 10, top 12, and I really believe that's where he's at. His stats the last 4 years have bared that out, and right now they bear that out. Now, have we turned the ball over more this year, and we're ultimately going to turn it over? Yes, we have. We definitely have. Out of the 7 picks, a couple of them really hurt us. A couple of them were 100% on him. About 3 or 4 of them were 100% on him. Those last 2 in that game against Chicago, 100% on him, but there's been a couple that weren't. So, when you throw the ball more, I got news for you. There's a good chance, unless you're Drew Brees or Tom Brady, there's a good chance you're going to have some more picks. We didn't take that many chances kind of on the run last year when Keenan would maybe duck, an ongoing rusher and then just chuck it up and Thielen would, bail him out or whatever. And I'm not taking anything away from Keenan. I mean, right now, what Keenan had, 22 and 7, that's what Cousins has right now. And clearly, we had a better, more efficient offensive line. And that's something that stood out last year so much and had a lot to do with us being 13-3 because we had seen the previous 2-3 years of offensive line garbage. Now, this offensive line that we have this year, I don't believe it's as bad as it was 2000, what would that be, 16 and 17, where you're just like, oh, my God, dude. It's like we got to do 3-step and just get rid of it. Like, there's just no point. I don't think it's that bad. It's not good. Let's say that. It's definitely not good. And when you're second in attempts the bad way now, or I don't know what we are in attempts this year. It's really low, but we are second in rushing overall, where I think we were 7th or 8th and second in attempts. So all in all, though, we still haven't really played many of our best games. I think everybody kind of won it last night, especially the defense, but the special teams made a lot of good plays. Sure, we missed some field goals, but, we are used to looking great and looking 13-3, and I hate to say it, but 15-1, and, all these gaudy numbers. Just throw it up to Randy. Something will happen positive. We've had these great regular seasons, And then this last week in Thanksgiving, with Robert Smith and Chris Carter and Pep and Moss all eating, some turkey by John Madden. That's great. That was basically our Super Bowls back then. It was like, yes, dude, we beat Dallas. That's our Super Bowl. Buckle up because the rest of the season's coming. Well, December is upon us, folks. And we're right in the hunt, and we still haven't played our best football. Now, we're going to get a chance to see if we can do it. Is there anything else that you'd like to obviously the explosive plays were back as well on offense, but is there anything that you'd like to kind of, discuss or bring up or piggyback or anything from the game at all before we start to get to previewing this difficult game against the Pats coming up?
Well, you mentioned Cousins, and a couple points on that is I really thought he managed the game. I know that's, weird, kind of feels weird to say managed the game, but he did. I mean, he took a couple sacks. He didn't make mistakes. He didn't turn the ball over. It seemed like he handled himself a little bit better, maybe pulled back a little bit, and that makes me kind of think about, that talk he had with Zimmer, and didn't it kind of seem like it was maybe like a last year's offensive game plan, just stick Cousins in there? I mean, we were rolling him out of the pocket, moving him around a little bit more like we did with Keenum, kind of the same kind of routes, the timing, and maybe that's kind of what maybe offense dialed back a little bit and sort of went back to what they were doing last year. Now, I know it's a different offensive coordinator and all that, but I think Zimmer kind of got really upset with just what we were talking about, is maybe forgetting about the run game. Maybe he was getting a little upset with the razzle-dazzle, and he just kind of wanted to kind of see what he saw last year, something steady and consistent that you can count on. And it seems like maybe Cousins just kind of fit in that Keenum role, as weird as that is to say, to, keep it simple, make the throws. You got talent, and talent can win, and do that. Now, I'm not saying that, that's going to be a year-long thing, but I think what you saw was just maybe a more reserved Cousins, maybe took a deep breath and said, I got a lot of money and there's a lot of pressure. Well, I'm going to just play football. And I was really happy to see him not make those mistakes, trying too hard or trying to force something. He didn't do that at all last night. Therefore, we didn't turn the ball over, and it helped with our victory. So, that was kind of my notes on Cousins. I think maybe he's settling in a little bit. And what you were saying also about, we've had these great regular seasons. Well, maybe this year, I think maybe just to forward your point that you were getting at was, maybe this year we do it the hard way. We work through it, got a tough schedule, especially with what's coming up. And maybe we're going to do a more gritty way. We haven't tried that. We've always had these spectacular regular seasons and nothing to show for it. So maybe we have a less lackluster or more lackluster regular season and actually get somewhere in the playoffs.
It could be, man. I'm just putting it out there. I mean, we've had this ain't no stopping us now, just like a celebration season where you're just like, dude, we're gonna beat him by 40, dude. Nobody can stop Moss, dude. And you're just pumping. And you seen Favre. This might be his best year, dude. Sidney Rice is a stud with Favre. We got Percy. We got all these, all this stuff. And then, it all comes tumbling down. We turn out not to be king of the mountain. And, maybe it won't be this year because of the offensive line. Maybe next year and the year after. The good thing is we have this core, especially if we keep Sheldon, for a while now, for a while.
And it seems like maybe all the players and the team kind of understands that what really matters. And the regular season obviously matters, but what really matters is getting in the dance and winning that thing. And you can go 13-3 and losing the, divisional playoffs, and it's really not what you wanted. It wasn't, maybe you didn't pace yourselves or you didn't do right. And honestly, I'd rather. 14-1 or 14-2, 15-1, 13-3 could be fool's gold, and it has been in the past. So maybe try 10-6 and the hard-working, gritty effort, so that when you get to the playoffs, there's something behind what you're doing.
We may have another freaking draw for all we know. We may have two ties going into it. Well, however we get there, But you're right. And, just to piggyback off what we were saying about the run game, 91 yards and 29 rush attempts. Still threw the ball 38 times. But, and nowadays that's not crazy. As long as we keep it under 40 or 35, I think that'll go a long way. And I agree with what you're saying about Cousins on a wide variety there. He seemed really comfortable, and all signs pointed to him probably should not be feeling that way. Coming off another or not another, but a game where he didn't play good on national TV, and then the very next week you got to go on that same Sunday night and see if you can put it together, and he definitely did. And of course, when you make all that money, you're going to get, you're going to have the attention, no doubt about it. But for all those people saying if we just had Keenum, it would be a wrap, and all that. Come on, dude. Like, it's just, it's nothing about Keenan. He's having a good season, not a great season, but he's having a good season. But there's reasons why he's not having the season he had last year. That's part of it. That's just part of it. But yeah, as we move on, and this is also part of it too, the fact that our schedule is much tougher this year. It's not even up for debate. Anybody wants to debate that, you might as well go debate with a wall or something, maybe your dog or your cat or something, the pet gopher, because this shit's tough, dude. We got a tough-ass schedule. Speaking of the Gophers, rough. We're going to get to the Gophers. It's rough, and before we get into this Patriots preview, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the show. If this is your first time listening to the Purple People Eaters podcast, it streams live and archives right here at blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope-Radio. You can find it right here. You can also subscribe under the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast or the Purple People Eaters podcast. It's a whole lot to say here. You can subscribe under that umbrella of the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast anywhere. iTunes, Player FM, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, basically everywhere. And what makes it everywhere is we are part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network. Okay, so that means you can subscribe there and find the Purple People Eaters podcast and stream it on iHeartRadio. Listen to it there like my co-host does. Also, a lot of people into Spotify. We stream it live there. Head on over to gruelingtruth.net as well. The gruelingtruth.net, it's football, it's basketball, it's baseball, it's boxing, it's everything in between. Head on over to gruelingtruth.net, listen to the podcast, read an article, and while you're at it, make a bet. If you place a bet, it'll link you right to mybookie.ag. Mybookie.ag is the sponsor. So, yeah, on to the next one. And that next one, well, it's a doozy. It is a doozy, like we say up here, up north here. And by the way, before we move on, we have to report some good news out of Eagan. That's the place where both my co-hosts and I graduated from, Eagan High School. Good news out of the facility there in Eagan. The hamstring of one Xavier Rhodes, a very important part of the defense, is a very mild sprain to the hamstring. Very mild injury to the hamstring. Now, does that mean he's back and he's going to be there for the Sunday afternoon in New England? That I don't know. I think so. That's just a hunch because of hamstrings. Skill players, feet and hamstrings, basically feet and legs. With skilled players, they need them. They need them pretty much 100%, close to anyway. So I don't know, but the way Zimmer said it, and he mentioned those TV doctors, erroneous reports. So that's a big one, Aaron. We could not hear. He's going to miss about 6 weeks.
Yeah, we couldn't hear that. I just came to my mind, the quarterback run we're going on here is pretty incredible. We're doing Rodgers, we got that win, to Brady, to Wilson. That's kind of a murderer's row, but, I think one will lead to the other. It's good that you get prepared for Rodgers, and then you work that defense, go in and tweak it a little bit for Brady, and by the time you hit Wilson, maybe you're just rolling with it. It goes back to that premise that we had earlier about doing things the hard way. Stealing. You start to build up that steel and that hardening that you're going to need for the playoffs. That run of quarterbacks coming up is nothing to be taken for granted, I guess. And who's after that? Isn't it? Who's after the Seahawks? I don't know, but I think it's Arizona
home against Miami. I think it's Miami.
I feel sorry for that dude, whoever it is, because we're gonna be primed.
Yeah, right.
Those good passes, man.
You'll be like, who the hell is this dude? And then he'll be out hurdling our linebackers and shit, and we'll end up losing that game. I'm just kidding, folks.
Yeah.
Don't get mad at me.
Yeah, I know. That's still poor Barr. They got T-shirts of that thing. But, yeah, so Brady, Brady's tough. He's different than Rodgers. He's like classic drop-back passer. Has the pockets, got a pretty good offensive line. I feel like this is the kind of game we can turn the dogs loose on the defensive line and get some pass rush. And we're going to need it. The receiving core, I think, if Rhodes can play and can play well, that'll really help out a lot. But if not, I am building more faith, and I always had a little bit of faith, but he's really shown up in Holton Hill, and he's the same body type and a little bit younger. So, I think that bodes well. Waynes is still playing well. Alexander's surprising me. So I think we've got the defensive backs to handle it. I'm a little more worried going into the Packer game than I am going into the Patriots game. The problem with the Patriots to me is their running game and their offensive line. And, can we stop the run, because we're really going to need to stop their run in this one. And Brady is Brady. He's an accurate passer, and that can get to us a little bit. Our coverages haven't been great, and without being grabby, I think, it gets a little bit worse. So, and it's going to be on the road, so they'll have a little bit of home cooking with the refs. It's going to be a tough game. I don't know who Vegas has right now, but, your thoughts on it, I guess.
It's dropped the point to 6
point.
now. It opened at 7. We're a 6-point underdog on the road.
Okay, well, we like coming in as underdogs. Zimmer likes that role, so. It's going to be a battle down there. I'd like to see two teams play well, and I'd like to see the Vikings coming on top. But, nonetheless, you just want to make sure you play discipline in the secondary and don't give up too much. And, a lot of disguises. Zimmer ran the 3-gap blitz last night, which is interesting, putting Harrison Smith above the nose tackle. Of course, he didn't send them all yet. But, creates more confusion and who to block and when to block and all that stuff. So I think he's got some wrinkles coming up. I think he probably saw this run of quarterbacks before we even became aware of it. So I'm sure he's got some things up his sleeve. It should be a good ball game.
Yeah, and the defense has played well. I mean, go back and look at Breeze's numbers. That's the worst he's done. Look at Rodgers last night. We've contained these guys. Even Trubinsky, I mean, he scampered a couple of times. I give him credit. He did what they needed to be done to win that game, but it wasn't a pretty fantasy line by any stretch of the imagination. So that's nice. With the Patriots, you're right. It does offer us a little bit different to step up in the pocket. He really has a good feel of getting rid of the ball in time and putting it right in the dirt if he has to. The Patriots themselves have been on quite a roll. They had a large hiccup. I'd fully call it the hiccups, not just a hiccup, but, recently, which was kind of strange. But they lost back-to-back games in September, and since that point, they had beaten some teams like the Colts that are pretty good this year. They've definitely bounced back. Andrew Luck, good for him, man. That guy was injured for a while. He's having a great season. They had that complete shootout. And now when I say that shootout, we don't know what the hell we're talking about anymore, because every other, game is a shootout. But that 43-40 college game against the Chiefs, speaking of a shootout, 38-31 against Chicago. Then they just worked the Bills. Patriots game was competitive, but they closed it out 31-17.
And then a couple of weeks ago, right before their bye, somehow, some way, they got their ass whooped 34-10 by the Titans. Now they bounced back to an extent, getting a nice victory last night or yesterday, I should say. Sony Michael definitely had, out of Georgia, had a good run game, that's for sure. Brady's having a pretty good season. Nothing spectacular, but they're built to run a little bit more this year. They even have our guy Patterson running the ball, which, makes sense. Did you see that highlight of him yesterday, Aaron? Not the highlight of him scoring, but the highlight of him grabbing that dude in his stuff. And not just grabbing or punching it. Okay, he held onto this dude's stuff for a good 3-4 seconds. It was like, dude, come on, man. Just drop an elbow in the area and move on. I mean, dude, I guess he's like, hey, once I can't let the ball go. It's kind of a natural thing. I don't know what it is, but they spread the ball out. They spread the ball out. They got a guy in Hogan. Hey, they got Philip Dorsett that's playing all right anyway. I bring him up because he's a Miami Hurricane. But they got Hogan, who's at 380 there. They got Grunk, who's at 504. They got Elderman, that's at 5'10", who, was suspended there. They got Gordon, who's at 547. They got White, who's at 567. So they spread the shit out of the ball. So we're going to need that all-purpose, every cornerback in secondary. And by the way, What's-His-Toes got the start last week, I assume, in the secondary. I'm escaping his mind. He's been playing good lately. He's got the dreads. What's his damn name here? Anthony
Harris.
Anthony Harris. He played pretty good, by the way. I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, he really has played well. Last night he didn't get any turnovers, but the last two before that, he got a turnover each game. And I remember he did show up last night and made a big hit over the middle. So, yeah, I mean he's really done well for himself.
So yeah, man, this is just in general. This is going to be a test, and you're totally right about Zimmer having that. Well, they say we're not going to win this game, and so what do you say about that? And all that kind of ploy there. It's about a 3-point game though, because as we know, home field gives you about 3 points in Vegas. Just sheer numbers wise, Cousins is actually kind of outplaying Brady, but like I said, they run the ball more. They definitely don't rely on as much, just two guys like we do in the pass game. Thielen's up to 93 catches and a buck, or 1,138 and 8 touchdowns. Nice to get touchdowns this year,
incredible.
too. Wow. And
that's
Diggsy
incredible.
just got over 1,000. Diggsy just got over 1,000, too. That's the first time he's been over 1,000. And it must be the first time
nice
since Carter and Moss.
And last night we got to see Rudolph a little bit more involved. I thought that was an important part of moving the chains going forward. So, that's a big part of getting a third from somebody, whether it be Treadwell or Robinson or even Cook in the backfield or Kyle Rudolph, getting a third person in there that can be a threat, in the passing game really would help spread the ball out a little bit even more. And I think that's an important thing to do. I think defenses can adapt to maybe 2, but there's no way they can adapt to 3. And that's really great. But, yeah, defensively, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape going into Foxborough. But, offensively, they got a pretty stout defense. They give up points. It all depends on, I hate to say, but the weather coming up on Sunday and how that might affect things. Kirk's shown that he can throw outside and play outside pretty well. I'm not sure if it's a noon game or a 3 o'clock game, but
it's a 3 o'clock prime time afternoon.
So you should have the sunshine there at least. You won't have that morning type of feel to it, and that's going to play a factor. The wind and so on. I like the Vikings in this game. I think it's 3 points either way on this. I haven't quite made up my mind here on Monday about, who's going to come on top, but I think it's going to be a close game. I think with these two coaches, it's going to be probably as total as the lowest scoring game. I think that the defenses on both sides are really going to be well coached and full of surprises. And so I think it's going to be a defensive battle. Something in the neighborhood of a 17-14, something like that, maybe a touchdown, a half for each team, maybe throw some field goals in there. It's going to be a really close one. And it's one of those things where we're not real familiar with them, and they're not too familiar with us. We don't play them. I think we play them once every 4 years or so. So, it's going to be a lot of watching film and trying to do that. Get a good grip on what's going on. Gronkowski, he's healthy and running right now. That could cause some problems. But that's where the big nickel comes in with Curse and Ialoka and those guys. Maybe we can find a guy who can get a good cover on him, and maybe Curse is that guy. Outside, they've got Gordon, who's fast. He's a beast. So, that's a Rhodes cover as far as I'm concerned, just because
I'm really
of size.
happy he's returned and on a good team, to be honest with you.
Me too.
Just some stuff. It's really tough, especially in a wide receiver, to miss that many games and that much times out of the facility, that much time in general, and still be a productive football player. So, kudos to him. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no. Just those are the kind of matchups that Rhodes tends to exceed at. Size on size. When he gets the little guys, the shifty guys, he has a little bit hard time with his quickness. But those bigger guys where it's muscle on muscle and a little bit of hand fighting and some trash talking and gets him energized. And so hopefully he's healthy enough to play in this game. And I think that's going to be a huge because, Wayne's is a little bit smaller, but he's fast, and then you've got Hill, who's just got, I don't know if he's experienced enough to go against something like that. So having Rhodes back is going to be pretty important to this game. It just got to be – he's got to play. And I'm not really too worried about his injury because it just seems like he comes up with these little injuries every time he gets burnt, And it's like, oh, okay, I just got twice for 30 yards. Oh, my hamstring, And I hate to say that about him, but he's starting to kind of become a pattern with him. And then you find out a day later that it's really nothing. So I don't know. So I guess if you're going to put a gun to my head, I will take the Patriots by 3 in this one.
Well, he is a Florida State Seminole, so they just can't admit when they got beat. It's not a big deal.
You had to do that.
You're right, dude. You are right, though. He did get. Remember, I think he actually messed up his foot though, in that one, because you could see it that weird. But you're right. That was on a play he got beat on. He just got beat for the. What was it? That was their biggest play of the night, wasn't it? Like a 30-yard pickup. I think it was. So, yeah, you're right. He did. And then it comes back, the MRI comes back mild. So he's like, I mildly got burnt, but it mostly had to do with the hamstring. Yeah, I couldn't even really see him, where that – hammies are different, but, usually you pull up once you're on the run and you can't use it. You kind of pull up a little. There was no pulling up. He didn't pull up. He came out of the play and was like, oh, man, my hammy. So, interesting.
Well, now I'm inclined to defend him since you brought up the fact he's a Knoll. My 4-7 Florida State Seminoles. Yeah, it just seems that way. Like, oh, Jesus, big play. Oh, my ankle or my leg, and then it's fine, and it's okay. I always kind of think of track athletes that are like that, where they pull up with that hammy just as they're getting beat at the line. So, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, he's going to be important. He needs to play well in this one.
And that is another reason because we don't know if he's going to play, whether he faked it or not. And by the way, Dion, just to speak good of a Seminole, Dion, when that 1 year he was with the Niners, he'd always pull up at the last second against Rice to be like, just so you know, I'm right here, but I'm not going to go for it. I'll let you have the catch, but I am right here. And just to kind of mess with him, and sure enough, when he went to the Cowboys, that started playing into it, so he didn't really know all his little tricks to the trade. Right now, so you're under. On the over and under is set at 48.5. You're well under. Is that what I'm gathering?
Oh, yeah.
Sir?
Yeah, I think we're going to go under on that one. I just feel like these are it's not only just the athletes on the field. I think there's a little thing going with Zimmer and Belichick. as far as coaching defense goes, and I think they're gonna keep it pretty low, kind of pull out all the stops. And again, I think it's a good matchup for us, just because I don't want to equate Brady to Stafford, but it's that kind of drop back guy, that old school guy that has a good pocket, stays in the pocket, and can really facilitate from there. Now Brady's a surgeon, so you want to make sure you got coverage in the back end, but I think you can really send the rush this week and feel pretty good about it.
And they do give up like almost 40 yards more on the pass than us. That's kind of interesting. Huh. So I'm gonna call for about a 27 to 24 or 24 to 20. I'm with you though. I'm not siding with them. God dang it! But I'm not going to pick my Vikes. We're not picking our Vikes this week. Reality sets in sometimes. But really, when push comes to shove, when you look at this playoff race, Aaron, we really have to. Like, this wouldn't kill us. What we need to do is make sure we take care of business on Monday night against Seattle. That game is crucial because they're 6-5. Not that we could just give away games, but when push comes to shove, that kind of, that's really the one we got to worry about. Now, if we go ahead and get this W, wow, that would be huge. But, yeah, so we're both calling for a Vikings loss. Unfortunately, I do remember in 2009, just to bring up some old great seasons, regular seasons, I'll say. I remember the Patriots, Brady and company, they just spread us out that night. It was on a Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
It's either Monday night or Sunday night. Spread us out 5 wide receivers. Every play, 5 wide receivers. Mm-hmm. And sure, they didn't get a bunch of big plays, but they dinked and dunked us, and they totally took our pass rush out of the game. And for the rest of that season, we had to figure out, okay, now not everybody has Brady, and not everybody, especially then, has the talent that he had in that system anyway to be able to do that. But that was genius, and that killed us that night. I don't know how many attempts he had, but he had a bunch. And sure, a lot of it was dink and dumping, but they kept the clock. It kept our our high-powered offense off the field, and it wore down our defense. So don't. They're going to run. They're going to try to run, but don't be surprised if we see 4 and 5 wide receiver sets, with obviously Grunk maybe being one of them, and just try to get it to 3rd and 3 and that type of thing. So, so that about wraps up the Purple People Eaters podcast Minnesota Vikings segment. For those who are going to hang around and listen to the rest of the show, that will feature recap, breaking down the huge win over our bitter rival, Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Badgers. And so we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that. We're also gonna cover a little bit of the Minnesota Gophers basketball club too. They got 3 big wins, or 2 of them, I'd say, out of the 3 in that Vancouver Invitational, I'm calling it. And to take that one down, they got a 5-0 start. They're actually playing right now. They're tipping. I'm going to watch that on DVR. No spoiler from the Timberwolves game, because I'm going to watch the Timberwolves game, then I'm going to watch the Gopher game. Just a heads up there, okay? But, I mean, it's been, I said it earlier, since 50 Cent in the club in 2003 was the number 1 jam in the country. That's the last time we even beat the Wisconsin Badgers. It's the last time, 2003. 2016, we had a lead at half, played pretty good, lost. 2014 had a chance. It was 17-10, I believe. Would have been 17-3, but we had a fumble. They scored. It was 17-10 at half in 2014, and that was for a trip to the Big Ten championship game. But we had that moment there where all you had to do is punt the ball, but we couldn't do that. We got a block punt, picked it up, scoop, score. Yeah, I mean, there's been so many. And then 1994 is the last time we won in Madison, and I'm trying to, I remember who I was with. I remember walking to my car down like a little slight hill on like apartments or townhouses or something. And I remember that day though, and I remember it was with Gilmore, I believe, or Gillen, or no, it wouldn't have been Gillen, maybe Gilmore, I don't know. But I just remember walking like after that took place. I just remember like going, wow, that was I can't believe we beat them type thing. And I don't think it was actually at the end of the season. I think that was in October because we didn't always play them. Now we play them at the end of the season pretty much all the time. But it's been a long, long, long time coming. And, you know, we did it in a variety of ways. We really did. They missed a field goal early on a nice long drive. We got a field goal. We got the interceptions. We caused the turnovers. You know, we spoke of managing the game with Cousins more. Well, that's exactly what Morgan did. Wasn't that active, but he didn't get us into trouble. Offensively speaking, though, Abraham is just this guy, this freshman. This dude is such a hard-nosed runner, and you know we kept Taylor out of the end zone. Yeah, he had a $120, but that guy averages a $120 just getting off the bus. I mean, he gets like a 5-yard pickup just off the bus. This guy's so damn good. You know, it was just fun to watch, man. When we're up 10-0 off a touchdown drive, defense stands, and sure enough, a freshman takes it to the house. Demetrius Douglas for 69 yards. We're up 17-0. Now they did get they went right back down like the Badgers do against us. Eight play drive in under a minute. You don't think an 8-play drive, 75 yards under a minute with the Badgers. You know that's not their style, but they got it done. And sitting at half, going, okay, let's just play hard, dude. I really want to see us play hard. And sure enough, came right out and had that turnover on downs. Big play there. Defense held. Got a field goal. Got an interception. Another field goal. And then we just put the game away with interceptions, touchdowns. Like, it was gorgeous, man. And you know, it was just there's so much positivity out of this win. We talked about how important those 13 or 14, whatever it's going to be, those bowl practices. You know, as a team to head someplace, especially when, you know, 53 guys on your roster are redshirt freshmen or true freshmen. It's huge. And to get this W the way we did, and the defense, like, wow, you know, this was just phenomenal in so many ways. And finally, the axe is back. And I'll tell you what, you know, last year was the first time that they actually tied the series last year. And we couldn't have that. We could not have that. We're like, nope, you're not going to tie the series. People kind of freak out and think, what? That series is tied? How could that be? Well, dude, you know, actually, I'm sorry, it's tied again. That was the first time the Badgers had ever had a lead, and that was the 128th meeting. It's the oldest rivalry out there. It was 60-50, 59, and 8 ties. This was, you know, based off of coming into the game. So this is the first time that they had actually led the series because, you know, from the 30s to the 70s, we dominated the series, obviously. And it was even back and forth in the 80s, in the early 90s, until Wisconsin, you know, won that Rose Bowl and just went from there and have been a great program since. But 14 games, longest streak in the series, and first meeting in 1890. That's crazy. There's so many great things about this, Aaron. I keep blabbing. I'm going to pass it off.
You know, thinking about it, man, after the win, it wasn't maybe just the win, it was the complete win. I mean, we won on defense, we won on offense, won on special teams. You know, we beat them. There was no, you know, they missed a field goal, we got it at the end, or fluke play, fumble, nothing. I mean, beginning of the whistle to the end whistle, We won that football game, and I think that's why it feels so good. Besides the time and the tying of the series, 1890 is just unbelievable, man. This is the longest rivalry, and it's hard to believe, man. That's like 120 years of playing this game, and now we're back tied up again, and we got the jump because we're holding the axe. I think that, having a bowl game here for these freshmen and true freshmen kind of sets the tone. You want them to expect a bowl game every year. You want them to start it off right, get in a bowl. I'm not sure which bowl we're going to. Some people say it's the Pinstripe Bowl in New York or a bowl down there in San Francisco. I think people want the bowl in San Francisco. Also heard some rumblings about going to Detroit and playing Western Michigan, old coach goes back. That seems like, God, with that story angle, that kind of seems, kind of seems like the one to go to.
But it sucks to the players, like, hey guys, you're going to Detroit. You're like, oh, what? We're going, what?
Yeah,
We're going to go play in a stadium that's going to have like 30,000 people in it? Oh, great. No, I'm just kidding.
And it's kind of spitting in the eye of Western Michigan, I think. That's just kind of classless, I would think, if they scheduled that. But, they'll line them up, we'll play them. But it's good to just get a bowl game. Going in, I wasn't sure that we were going to, and I certainly didn't see the kind of game that got being played. And it was just good to see. You were right about Mo Abraham. He runs tough, runs hard. He's really starting to get those extra yards. Going into next year, we got a stacked backfield. We're 4 deep in that thing, and 2 youngins, and then the 2 old guys coming back, and they are old now,
They really are. Dude, it's ridiculous what we got coming back, man.
And then we got, we're going to have a little bit of a quarterback controversy. I think Tanner really, solidified the job, but that's just my opinion as far as starting quarterback. And we got to recruit Jacob Clark out of Rockwell, Texas, coming in. He's went from a 3-star to a 4-star. He still keeps his commit to us, and he's pro-style quarterback. So there'll be some competition in that room. And then Cole Kramer out of Eden Prairie will be coming in too. So you got that. You got guys that are coming in like Thomas Rush at linebacker who will fill up for Blake Cashman. I think that'll be amazing. But we can go on to the next season, I think, a little bit later. But it's really starting to progress up here in this program. I think the win over Wisconsin really kind of sets the tone for this season, the bowl game, and next season. And, it's looking up. There's a lot of people that are still naysayers, and they either haven't been listening or haven't been watching. But, they'll see soon enough, I think, that, barring any kind of weird, coincidence, that this program's going to keep trending forward. What I'm starting to think maybe is, our ascension is going to be the fall for Wisconsin. Just as their ascension was kind of
because they're now figuring out their coach situation, something they haven't had to deal with since like the 90s, dude. Yeah,
and can there only be one? It'd be nice to have, a nice both teams being good, but maybe it's a recruiting thing where, one player will choose there or not. I don't know. But, I'd like to see both teams.
Miami and Florida State and Florida. They're generally not good at all at the same time.
Yeah, could be that way. We'll see how that goes. But, really nice win. I think the whole state's really happy about it. And I don't remember what I was doing in 94 when they won, but I'm sure I was hanging around the same neighborhood doing the same stuff that we were doing back in those days. But, it's good to have it back. I think before that was 2003, and I can't remember who was coaching that squad when we won here at home. It wasn't Wacker, because Wacker was earlier than that. And was it Brewster? Did Brewster beat Wisconsin?
In 2003, that was Mason.
Mason. Okay, duh. Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Same year
now.
that we were up like 21-7 or 28-7 or whatever on Michigan. That was that year we could have really done something. Man, I had to bring it up. Damn it.
Oh, that's one of the classics. Good win, good program win. Let's do a recruiting if you can add a couple guys or maybe go up a couple stars on some guys and see what kind of class we get in. I know he said it was going to be pretty defensively heavy, especially in the defensive backfield. obviously we're a little short there as far as depth goes. So that makes a lot of sense, and just keep getting better.
Yeah, and for those who are poking fun at they were down, and well, we're not up. The Wisconsin was down. Well, we're not up. This isn't our best team. This isn't our best team. This isn't even the team that we had in 2014. So you can say all you want about who's down and who's up, but we're not up either. We're on the up and up. But, yeah, and just kind of piggybacking off what you said about the year in Wisconsin, maybe, they are not just a sure, besides Iowa, they're not a sure fit into the conference final every single freaking year. You know what I mean? And that's all we can ask for. We're not saying that they're down in the ditches now and they're not going to win 8 games, over 8 games or nothing like that. It's nothing like that. It just, it's tough to fire a coach when a couple years back, last year, you were undefeated for the season and then went into, the conference final undefeated. So are you really going to, just because it was 7-5 year, could get 8 wins of the bowl, are you really going to fire that coach? I'm not sure they will. I don't think they should. I don't think they should, and I kind of hope they don't, because I don't think this guy is as good as they've had, for those long chunk of times. It's almost like the Packers quarterback, thing where they went from Favre to Rodgers. Rodgers makes a couple of bad passes, and you're like, oh, my God, what the hell? Freaking out. It's like, dude, you guys are just spoiled. But we do have some big dudes in the middle coming in. That's going to help shore up that defensive line in general. We have seen some, productivity out of that a little bit more. Obviously, we're going to be deep as hell at linebacker. We got a bunch of juniors this year. Of course, the guy that a lot of people kind of point to as one of the leaders, he's going to be gone. But we definitely have a bunch of juniors coming back there. So if you look at the senior class, there's not a ton of them. There's not 13 of them. But what they are, this is how it breaks down. I said 52. 58, it was 52% of our roster. 58 freshmen or redshirt freshmen, that's the most. The 10th most as far as 70% of our underclassmen, 78 of them. And now we're up to, because the last night we started Teague, so now we are up to 11 freshman starters. So that's kind of heading into next year. Tyler Johnson, I really hope he comes back. That's going to be key. 79% of his receptions heading into, Saturday's game went for first downs. It sounds like he's coming back. Get ready for this. He led the league, the Big Ten, in yards and in catches. I think in catches too. But he's the number 1 wide receiver in the Big Ten. That is so rare for the, I was almost said the Vikings, the Gophers. It's not rare for the Gophers. We've had a good run of wide receivers. But, if you look at the 2 quarterbacks, I really hope we can bring them back both next year. That's what I really hope for. And one doesn't, Annexstad doesn't go, well, you know what? I was the guy earlier and I played well, and then I got a little injured and I started turning the ball over. Well, you could say that about the other freshman, redshirt freshman. He started out well, went through some times where he kind of, looked like a redshirt freshman, and then has come out on the other side of that. So it'd be really key because of their game experience, not only within the system, but, like I said, in the actual game. Both of them got a fair amount. It's almost split in half the way it works out. So that's a positive. We saw potential in both. They're going to make some freshman mistakes, of course, but I really hope Annexstad stays with it. If you look at his track record, he probably will for another year. But just to have him, both of them in the room, and also depth, obviously, for next year, because when we saw that next year's schedule, it lines up nicely. Really, November is going to be the challenging month, of course. But if we can come in there with only 2 or 3 losses, we can really have a good season. Even if we came in there somehow with just 1 or 2 going in November, that would be big. But that's obviously neither here or there per se. But, yeah, man, things are looking up, on the up and up. And if you don't, to get the Axe, we brought the Axe back. We brought it to a damn Gopher hockey game. We brought it back to the facility, the practice facility, or indoor practice facility, and just saying indoor practice facility is a positive for us. The program has been built up now as far as, the exterior stuff and just the random stuff that kids care about and that you need anyway, in general. We got a recruiter right now. We're still top 35. We're going to close hopefully pretty strong here. He has a way of closing, and he is not just a recruiter, but a developer. He seems to be developing these guys, and that's key too. That's huge. That's really huge. Now the defense. One more thing. The defensive coordinator. Guess what? We don't need to go find one. I guess we got one. How confident are you? Couple of weeks. And to be fair, Fleck talks about how he's had this system for, what did he say, 6 or 7 years in place, and how I think, if you look at those first 3 games, we liked the defense. We liked what we saw out of that, right? Especially in that Fresno State game. If you look at it, for points-wise and whatnot, even that Miami of Ohio game held in the 3, we liked what we saw. So we started well, closed great, especially against better talent, better teams than, early, obviously, besides Fresno. But do you think, a couple of part question. Obviously, are you good, with them saying, you know what, we're keeping this guy. He knows the system. He knows the players. We don't want to get away from that. If you look at the numbers, it is night and day. You know what I mean? I mean, we're at 423 and 279 difference for total yards, and 31.8 down to 17. Now, it is a smaller sample size, but was it Maryland? Was it Maryland that just had our defensive coordinator go, oh, my God, we got to change things? And then being a brand new coach kind of here anyway in a Big Ten, maybe he thought, well, man, maybe I should let him go and move it a couple of times. Plus, look, we just got our ass kicked, so why not? Let's try something. We got back to basics. We got back to what, we recruit to, what we've been teaching these guys the last couple of years. Where do you stand with that? We thought he'd be a candidate. Now he's not just a candidate, but he's taken over. And I'm talking about, what the hell's his name?
Joe Rossi.
Joe Rossi. I almost call him Royce. I don't want to do that.
Here's the deal on that. The old one, the old offensive or defense coordinator, after that Maryland game, it just seemed like he kind of lost it. He kept, I think he overtried a bunch of things, and really it seemed like he got flustered or something happened in the locker room, and it just started a downward spiral that had to be broken, and unfortunately it was. Now, with Joe Rossi, I feel like he's kind of on a one-year prove-it deal as far as I'm concerned. You want to keep some continuity for your next year's seniors who have had too many coaches in too many years. And so I think that's probably something that you got to put into what Fleck might be thinking about. Maybe he thinks that Rossi is a continuation and not giving those guys a lot of change going forward. But after that, when he's got the fresh crew in, he might look to maybe find a different defensive coordinator, and therefore those kids would only have really one change as far as their continuity is concerned. I think he cares a lot about what's going on with that junior class with the linebackers that you mentioned with Barber and Coughlin and Kamal Martin and a bunch of the other guys that'll be seniors next year. So, Seth Green, I think, is one of those as well. Or he might actually be a junior next year. I'm not quite sure. But he wants to keep some continuity on the defense. And, giving Rossi that position, if he does well next season, I think he's got to, he'll keep the job. But, I don't see it as being a long-term solution. I think it's sold that way, but I think it's more of just to keep continuity. Like like I said earlier, this first year, second year, third year, that's all kind of a wash as far as is concerned. It's that fourth year when these freshmen now will be juniors. That's kind of
Right.
going to be, the biggest step, or should be the biggest step. It's also going to be a pretty tough schedule that year, but I think they'll be ready to handle it. I know their out-of-conference games are tough. They scheduled some really good games early in the season there, so it's not like Cupcake U's coming in and playing. They're playing some real teams. So, yeah, I mean, that's the natural progression of the program. I think I'm confident in what Rossi's done. I like that he simplified things. It seems like the players understand what he's trying to get across. They seem to be executing well. They seem to be in good spirits, and that's what you want, energy in your defense. And getting athletes in is another thing. We've got to deal with that secondary. It's just we need depth, and we've got guys that can go into next year and play with Williamson and some of the other kids with experience, but we need depth behind that. And Winfield will be back next year again, and, so hopefully he can have transitioning quickly to what we're going to talk about next is, Winfield and Brooks and Rodney Smith, that's translated over to Amir Coffey. Now, he needs to stay healthy for the Gopher basketball team this season, and he's one of those perennial injured type of guys, and it's sort of it's a big deal this year because we've got some expectations now in 5 games. They've played really, really well. Kelsey's really shot the ball well, which is an element that we haven't seen. Well, we have seen players that come in and shoot. We haven't seen them with the complement around them. And with you have Oturu, who's a good
shooter.
big man in the making. Sure.
We got a shooter. We got ourselves
just
a shooter, man.
A pure shooter and a good ball player and defensively minded kind of kid. It's something that you don't see a lot now. He hasn't, faced the rigors of the Big Ten, but we'll get him ready for that and see how he handles it. It's no walk in the park. I mean, it's a tough league, and so you got to be kind of tough. Like I was saying about Oturu, he's kind of built for that. He's young, but he's strong. He's muscular. We've got the kind of parts that you're going to need to push through in the Big Ten, and like we said last week, the depth is really impressive. You can go two guys deep at positions, and I think we're the only place we're kind of lacking a little bit, and you can give your opinion on this, because I think we kind of are of like mind with it. We got to settle in at the point guard position, and who's going to lead the team. We've got Jelly Pham and the kid Brock Stahl, who came from Milwaukee as a fifth-year senior. They try Amir Coffey a little bit at the point. So, that's kind of – and it's so important to have great point guard play, especially when you get into the tournament. And I think we'll get in the tournament this year. So, interesting to see how that progresses going forward for that squad.
Yeah, and I do like that we went with Coffey at point. Even as a younger player, he's shown that he can get assists, not even being the point guard. I think it's, the health is key. Even that last game against Washington, which was the ball just wouldn't go in for us, but ultimately we ended up winning. The shooter shot his shot. It wasn't a pretty shot, but it came off the hand just right, considering he had to kind of turn around and do it. Beautiful late three to get that W. But all of a sudden, Isaiah Washington in the second half looked like the guy we recruited. So I do kind of like him as an off-the-bench spark plug, or go take a seat, son. We'll get back to you next game. That type of thing. I think that's where he's at right now, the depth. And if you look at it, we're going to be ready. I mean, Utah, are they, like going to the Final Four? No, but they're a Power 5. Texas A&M, they lost a talented guy, but they did make the Sweet 16. Washington is picked like 3rd or 4th in the Pac-12. We're playing BC right now, on the road BC, in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Then our next game, a couple of days later, is kind of a run-through, but it is, for the actual Final Four that's going to be in the cities at the Vikings Stadium. But then we got the Big 12 Big Ten going against Oklahoma State. Then we have a couple days later at Ohio State and Nebraska. And, because we do, we have those early games now, 2 of them, and then we go back to our non-conference. We should be able to win all 4 of those, and that's about in that month span. We only have 4 games, so that's kind of, lick your wounds, and hopefully we only have about 2 losses in that moment, and then we start the Big Ten season. So we're definitely going to be tested. And a game like, the last game they had, Curry would have been nice to have right there. But Curry's going to be nice to have when Murphy's gone, for 2 more years as well, because he's a sophomore this year, because he did get that red shirt from the injury. So, yeah, I like what I see out of the Gophers B-ball. We'll dig into that a little bit deeper, like we said on a previous podcast, that after the Vikings seasons, just like college football, right? So when we've been updating you on college football, the next couple of weeks we'll probably do that for college basketball, for the Gophers basketball, right? We'll talk a little Timberwolves from here, here and there too. The first wave in a couple of weeks is about 3 weeks away since the early signing. We'll talk about, we'll recap some Gophers recruitment then. But once the Vikings season is over in February, it'll probably be January, February, whatever, we are going to do a weekly Minnesota basketball themed show. We may talk a little high school here and there with a player, whatever, but it's mostly, Gopher basketball and Timberwolves basketball. So we know this is a Vikings podcast. That's why we're saying it way deep into it. But just a heads up for those people that like football and basketball, we'll be doing that. But the Vikings Purple People Eaters podcast will be around. It'll just be in chunks throughout the rest of the next, till the draft, basically. Anything else you want to say? We definitely got to shut this puppy down. But anything else, sir, that you'd like to add?
No, I think it's been a good show, man. We covered a lot of ground. We're looking forward to a game in Foxborough and all the coming games, finding out where the Gophers are going to end up playing for a bowl, and looking forward to watching some good Gopher basketball. So, yeah, it's been a good week. Let's hope the next week is just as good.
There we go. Let's at least be competitive, but really let's get that victory at Foxborough, like you said, against the Patriots. Skol Vikes, you guys have a great week. Enjoy the week. Be safe. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving who celebrates it. And we're out. Peace.
Peace.
Once you become the world champion, I believe that you feel you have the upper hand. So now, as you fight, let's say you fight 4 or 5 years of straight survival, the bullshit, the holdback,